and welcome to this episode of Little Sprout Speech TV. Because today we're talking about how to help your child eat at school. Now, a lot of children with autism have a hard time with eating in general, but when it comes to eating at school, they have a really hard time because they tend to not eat and then they fade out in the afternoon, which can lead to bad behaviors and other struggles as well, especially if you're not paying attention or can't pay attention to what you need to be learning. So here are our 3 tips for today. Tip number 1, if your child has trouble eating in general, let's say you have a child who eats only bland foods that are brown and white, or they only can eat yogurt or mac and cheese from the same packaging each time, or just, in general, they have a very limited diet. If you have not already, I want you to contact an occupational therapist or a speech pathologist and discuss this with them because your child may be a good candidate for feeding therapy. And if that's the case, then this is something that you want to discuss with them because you want to put in place a plan to work on it in therapy in general, but also a plan to help them eat in school. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is if your child refuses to eat in school, it may be because they are so overwhelmed by the noises and all the people and the commotion going on in the school cafeteria. Children are generally given 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes to eat, and that includes getting there, taking the food out of their lunchbox, eating, cleaning up, and there's just so much going on that for a child who already struggles with eating, this is just going to be a complete whirlwind for them. So you might want to ask the child's teacher or the school if they can accommodate your child by having a small lunch bunch where maybe the teacher or another adult in the school can facilitate a lunch bunch group with your child and maybe 1 or 2 other children where it's not so overwhelming and the child can focus on eating, which is the point of lunch, rather than, being so overwhelmed by all the noises in the cafeteria. This helps them focus. So this is something to definitely ask the school if they can accommodate. And then tip number 3 is to limit the number of foods that you give your child for lunch. Sometimes, I've spoken with some parents who feel that putting 7 or 8 different things in the lunchbox gives their child options, but the reality is when your child is in school and they're already overwhelmed either by the noises in the cafeteria or whatever else may be going on, too much just overwhelms them and then they don't eat. Or if it's their foods there that they're not generally going to eat, but you feel good about putting in there, like carrots and turkey and things that they don't normally eat at home, don't bother putting them in their lunchbox for school. They're not going to eat them there, and it's going to be more overwhelming than helpful. So keep it to, let's say, 3 items that they eat, even if in the beginning it's goldfish, a cheese stick, and crackers. If they're going to eat those foods, then at least they're getting something in the way of calories to help them get through their afternoon, and that's going to be better than not eating at all. So keep that in mind when you're packing your child's lunch. And I'm going to link another article below that has some other suggestions. It's an article written by Melanie Potic, who has a fabulous blog on feeding and specializes in this area. So definitely check it out. Like I said, it'll be linked below. Let's review our tips. And so tip number 1 was if your child has trouble with eating in general, contact a speech pathologist or occupational therapist to discuss, potentially getting involved in feeding therapy. Tip number 2 is find out if the school can do a small lunch bunch for your child. And tip number 3 is to limit the number of foods to, let's say, 3 foods, rather than having a whole big smorgasbord of all kinds of items to choose from that can be totally overwhelming. So I hope this is helpful. I look forward to talking to you guys same time, same place next week. This is Hallie Vulcan signing off.